Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to take a crop loss tour across Taiwan as I travel during Chinese New Year. Even after the rare snowstorms that passed through Taiwan, blanketing most of the higher peaks, even down to about 600-foot elevation from the north of the island to the south, residents were still enthralled by snow-capped views near Jiayi. Now you'll find Jiayi right at the Tropic of Cancer. When we're talking about Taiwan, it's 25 degrees north latitude down to 22 degrees north latitude. The snowstorms and anomalous cold temperatures rolled through in the beginning of the month, which damaged an enormous amount of crops, even affected fish farming. Rare snows on Datun Mountain near Taipei. Snow falling on Yangmingshan down to 600 meters, which is rare. Chains on motorbikes, which made me giggle a little bit. So let's take a look at Taiwan. We're going to go down to Kaohsiung, which is further in the south, about 22.5 degrees north latitude. You'll see Pingtung right there. It's that green part at the bottom before you get into the yellow, which is going to be the mountains. So as the crow flies, it's about 37 kilometers to a place called Meinong. And that community itself is pretty much full-on farming there. So all these fields that you see are different types of crops. Could be coconut, could be banana, a lot of rice farming there. It's just a joy to drive around. It's really peaceful, and you get these small roads where you can drive down through the rice fields, coconut plantations. And this kind of sums it up into the kind of tranquil setting that you'll get right into the intersections in town, if you will. Flowers are a major part of the economy there. They're in bloom as well this time of the year. What you'll see in the back are the tomato plantations. This is what was heavily affected. These are good-looking plants here, healthy, but then the cold came, and that white opaque that you see is the netting that's over the growing areas for this type of tomato. And you notice the leaf damage that occurred. This is from the cold. I started to get the white striations, and you'll see the veins in the leaves after the cold damage. Now we did have a chance to talk to some farmers while we were going through the area. They told us this type of damage happens every single year, but this year it was extreme. Another thing they pointed out was that the temperature variations have been swinging so far back and forth that it's caused greater losses than usual, and they've definitely noticed a difference in the weather patterns changing. So as you drive around, all you see again is damaged tomato vines, And the countryside there in Meinong is stunning. If you like rock climbing or hiking, there's all types of lower mountains to go through. We stopped here to have some coffee during the morning before we decided where to go and talk to some more farmers. And the rice that was planted, this is about a month-old rice, didn't have any damage from the cold. But the tomatoes that were lost as they pick them and they can't export them, this is direct exports to China. They just throw them on the sides there. You can see the tomatoes start to pile up. And that was one thing that again and again we kept hearing was about the loss of export revenue from this particular area. Now what they're also starting is this more cold hardy black tomato variety. Somebody sees the future there because they're unveiling this in certain sections to see how it's going to cope with the cold. Changes are evident, not just in northern climes where we start to see a lot of crop losses across, Canada, the United States, and those northern climes where it gets extremely cold, Europe, but down in the tropical zones as well. Continuing on, the next day we moved from Meinong up to a place called Laonong. You have to follow up the river valley here, and you can see it's quite wide. The road's really good condition going through here. Glimpse of what the mountains look like. It's stunning scenery, absolutely. And it's a network crossing rivers from bridges over to valleys, back to bridges again. This green one here you can actually see on Google Earth. And as we were crossing, I decided to grab a video because this bridge was really interesting as well. The roadsides in Taiwan definitely have English and Chinese both, so it's pretty easy to get around if you are going to travel. But when you get up into Laonong, this is the roads that lead into the fruit orchards. So I was taken with a group of farmers to go up and check out the cold damage inside their wax apple plantation. And again, it's surrounded by mountains, so we spent a couple hours up there just walking around the plantation, taking a look at what was happening with the crops. And again, this is a major export. These wax apples are a major export up into China, but this year they're having gargantuan losses. It's devastating for them. They also grow another type of fruit called longyan, which means dragon eye. It's something like a lychee, incredibly sweet with a hard round seed in the center. And how they grow these wax apples, they put them inside the bag so there'll be no insect damage, so they have that beautiful appearance for export. This is an extra cost that went in this year that they're not going to recoup, along with the fertilizers and running the pumps and all the electricity and fuels involved. But this is what the wax apples look like when they're damaged by the cold. Blemishes and blights. The discoloration on the apples, if you let them go another week, they, just like a blister on the body, they start to cave in on themselves. And these are non-exportable. People didn't even want to eat them. You know, we looked at them and said no, and then we picked a few and ate ourselves, but nobody would even offer these for us to eat. You can see the types of damage, and no exporter will even touch us with a 10-foot pole. Some beautiful trees around the property. It's been in the family for about 120 years. Peaks appearing through the mist as we were there through the day, and then coming out through the village itself of Laonong. Basic farming community, what you can expect when you get further into the mountains away from the big cities. It's just usually one street or two streets with an intersection. Beautiful spots. People are so incredibly friendly. And here on the map, when we start over to the east, which is Qishan, you'll come to the place called Meinong, which I showed you before. And following the river valley up, eventually you come to Liugui, but Laonong is just a few kilometers before that. Notice also at Maolin, you'll start to see that on the right side, but what's up there in the higher mountains? We decided to take another day trip, our third day going up there. We were the only ones in this entire area. We parked and then we walked across the suspension bridge, foggy that day, raining intermittently. We stopped at a coffee shop right at the base of the bridge and where the river came together, and they gave us this hand-drawn map to head up further in the mountains called a place called Duolna. And the road just kept climbing from there, and up and up and up we went. You know you go in the right direction when you start to see the large sculpted eagle. And finally, when you get up in altitude, you're going to come to Duolna. A lot of the buildings are made of slate stones. Just one single street up there is the main boulevard. It's an Aboriginal village, so the artwork and the culture is still very strong up there. Just another couple peaks over, they have their own independent kingdom that still exists within Taiwan. I want to visit there when I have a little bit more time. But this is what the fields look like up at Duolna. They also had a lot of cold damage because they had sleet that came down with this storm. So what you're seeing there are these fields of amaranth that they're growing. And surrounding the entire area, the forest is thick, and it hadn't been logged since the Japanese were there in the 1940s, so there was still 70 years of solid growth behind that. As we were coming down valley, I decided to roll another video. It was coming into sunset, but there's been so many landslides up there that the government actually had to construct bridges that were raised off of the riverbed because the landslides are so intense in this area, especially with the earthquakes lately, that they saw the future, that it was just not possible to put roads along inside carved out of the mountains. Very little traffic up there. Definitely, these are isolated communities, but everywhere we stopped, it was the same repeating story. Crop losses, exports affected, all from the cold. I started talking about the grand solar minimum, and the elders were quite intrigued. They talked about it was cold like this 110 years ago. Interesting, at a low solar activity state as well. And for those of you into the electric universe, I thought you could appreciate this pattern. Thanks for watching. Hope you got something out of the video. This cold is encompassing our planet from the northern regions all the way down into the tropics. These crop losses, get ready. Your food prices are increasing and you need to start to deal with it.